Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. Today we're working on Mossy fuel pump. She no go no more, so we're gonna replace it. I've already done checking. There's a relay that turns it on and off. The relay's working fine. It's putting voltage back through the system, back to the connector on the fuel pump, which we'll show you in a bit where that's at. But first steps, we'll start up here at the top. The first thing you need to get rid of, this one has an aluminum cover. If you have just the plastic dish, still the same 4 bolts. In this case, I believe they're 20 millimeter, or not millimeter, Torx T20s. Alright, some of these are dummies, they aren't actual real live bolts. You don't have to take this off, but I like to. So it'll make seeing down in behind easier. Same thing, now this is the plastic that most of you will have, and just 4 screws. Then, Phillips screwdriver. And there's 4 more screws in here that actually hold the filler neck. So what you got to do the fuel pump is you got to drop the fuel tank. And if you have this disconnected, like that, that makes getting that out of there a lot easier. I'll throw these screws over here. At this point, if you still have the tether, you can squeeze these tanks together and pull the tether off and reinstall this, just to keep you from getting junk down in there. Now there may also be a ground strap coming off the filler neck going to a body mount in there. Mine is long gone, appears. I don't see where that's existing anymore. But the fun part is when you go to drop the fuel tank, this will have to feed down through that hole. So you may have to take this back off. You may be able to get it down through with the cap on. Your experience may vary. So that's what you got to do up top. Now we'll go underneath and we'll show you what you have to do under there. Alright everybody, hang on, we're going in. I got you mounted on a flashlight here. We'll see how this works. So what we got, there's your fuel tank skid. We got a bolt here. This one you don't play with. There's one here you got to play with. This one and one here. So 4 across the back. These actually strap the fuel tank to the skid, which will bring that down in one piece. And back here, see if we can get you guys wiggled around where you can see something. We got the bolt there and here. Then I think there's one more way over yonder. Here, let's see. Yes. There's one more clear up there by that bracket. So I'm gonna start seeing if I can get those out of there. And what you want to do in the meantime is get you something to hold this up, because as soon as them come out, this is coming down. What I'm going to use is a floor jack, probably a couple boards on it, up against here, so that I can slowly lower it down and feed that fuel filler neck down through. Now the other thing before you do that, one more step, got ahead of ourselves. See if we can get you guys pointed up here. Right here is the connector you got to disconnect for the electrical. This little red pin slides out, and that'll allow you to push this button and then pull this part out of this part. And then there's also a fuel connector right here. Make sure you guys can see that. This is a new filming technique I'm trying here. Yeah, this guy right here. You squeeze these two things together, the little white tabs, and that'll disconnect it here and here, and then you can pull the fuel line apart. I can't do it one-handed or I'd show you. And I'll spill camera, or fuel's gonna spill on my face when I do that. And then you also have this vacuum rubber hose that also needs, it just gets pulled apart. Same thing, one-handed is not an easy task. Okay, I found somewhere to stick you guys, so maybe you can see what I'm doing. There we go. There, it snapped out where we wanted it to. And then these connectors are always fun. Come on now. So they get mud and stuff in them, and there. Alright, that slid out. You push this with your thumb while pulling them out, and that should come apart. Alright, so we'll take that and we'll just kind of stick it over here. Maybe we'll put it up over top. There we go. That'll hold it out of the way. And this rubber hose, you can get a little bit of a twist on it. Wish I'd have grabbed a pair of pliers. And it should come apart. Get a pair of pliers. And I actually replaced this metal line not too long ago, and it's a little bigger than the original, so it's being tight. It's kind of like a Chinese finger trap. It's easy to put it together. It's a lot harder to get apart. There we go. Alright, now this is when you're going to get gas in your face. Be aware that it could happen. Squeeze them two little tabs. Give it a pull. And we only got a couple little drips because the pump wasn't pumping, which is good. So at this point, and depending on how much fuel's in the tank, it may siphon some out too. Now we will commence to taking bolts out. I'm going to get you guys out of the way so I don't smash the camera. We're going to go in here. I'm going to start at this one in the back corner because it's the worst one to get to. Alright, that one's out. Now the good thing for me is I had the skid out, a year or so ago, because the old one rusted away, and I put a new skid in, but because this has a body lift, you can do a tuck where you actually cut, I think, 2.5 inches out of this tub and make it sit up higher, which gives you a lot more room under here, which is making this nicer for what I'm doing today. But then the other end of that is all these bolts have been out, so they're a lot less battle this time. Now, if yours is very rusty, you may want to support this before you do what I'm doing. Because it may just want to fall on you. This one I know is stout enough that I believe I can take these back bolts out, then set up my jack to hold it while I take these last 4 out. Now the other end of this is I'm using a wobble socket is also making this possible with the impact gun, I think. Like I said, it's been over a year since I had this out, so. It's not wanting to. On that bolt, for some reason. Let's try the next one. Alright, why are you not wanting to unscrew? Just want to make me look bad on camera, that's all. Also a new impact that I'm not real happy with. It's got a smart technology, and instead of giving you all the pressure you need to get something out, it decides it just doesn't want to sometimes. When it does that, we get the one from 20 years ago that'll just work. Or the bolts just don't want to come out. Well, they're not bolts, they're nuts on studs. Which I also do not want to break. Wow, are those tight? Why are those so tight? We'll be back after I get them out. You can see it dip down. I got those 3 bolts out. Now we're going to put a jack underneath and stabilize it so we can work it out some more. This also helps if the fuel tank isn't full, which I'm not sure how much is in this tank. Now that it's stabilized, we can take the rest of our bolts out. And 4 nuts on the back. Well, my impact guns are just not having it today for some reason. I don't know why. Apparently I was on a mission when I put this in and I tightened them down. Probably thought I'd never have to get back in here again so soon. now she's loose. The only thing holding that in there at this point is the fuel line going up through to the fuel filler, which is laying loose in this fender channel, which there's wires to the tail light you have to watch too when you're dropping it away from there. And the jack. So let's see if we can gently, while watching all those things, lower this down a little bit. Now it's tilting to that side. This side will come down first because of that fuel line. And you got to kind of reach through here and work in around some stuff. If you can reach in, you can disconnect those lines right here at this point also. So I think we're going to get a little bit lower and then try that. That scraping noise on the other side is also the exhaust on that side. You have to watch it go around. Thought that was a 5/16 on this one. Maybe it is on that one. It is on that one. There's two lines. One's a vent and one is the filler. Alright, the vent is loose. We'll pull it up off of there. Alright, that one's out of the way. This one appears to be a size bigger. Yep. And these are replacement clamps. You'll have to do your own research on what you have there. And very likely those will break if you've not ever had this out before. Especially if you're in a northern climate like me. Also goes without saying, this is a good time not to be smoking or have any open fire around. Right there, mine came apart instead of unscrewing. So I'll have to blow it out some more where we can. Off there. At this point, I might as well just bring it the whole way out. Because there it is anyway. Alright, and there's that. Now we got a fuel tank out here. That feels pretty close full. Of course. So do you have it any other way when you need to change fuel stuff? And that's what your unit looks like now. At this point, we'll get you all this obnoxious light going on. And at this point, you can do the same thing here. Pull this off. There you can actually see how it works. When you push these down, it relieves tension on a barb in there and lets you pull that apart. Now at this point, if you have the tool that'll clip down over here, you can use a wrench and you can unscrew this nut. but I don't have that. So we're going to try to use this and gently try to unscrew that big nut. And there it's turning. You don't want to go overkill because you don't want to smash something, but also, this is a good time. Take an air hose or something and blow this out if it's muddy or dirty, or take it outside and wash it out so you're not getting contaminants down in your tank. This one's pretty clean. Like I said, I had it out not that long ago. Something else I noticed that I had messed up, this fuel hose in my case was routed on top of here, and it was pinching it kind of tightly right here up against that. So going back together, I guess that's just grease in there, but going back together, I'm going to route it underneath the strap here so that it's more protected. Alright, so that's off. And this should just slide up out of there. There's also a rubber gasket in here you gotta be mindful of. Lean it to one side, and there it is. You have to lean it because your fuel gauge sensor is right here. I believe there probably should have been a filter on the bottom of that. We'll have to look at the new one, see what it looks like. Chrysler part, so I'm guessing this is probably the original fuel pump. This Jeep only has 100,000 miles on it, so it is very possible. This Jeep also had a problem with hard starts, which is an indicator that you might be going to have problems with the fuel pump. But this is the regulator on top, and what happens when you have a hard start and you have to cycle the key a couple times to get to start is all the fuel will drain back through the regulator into the tank whenever you shut the engine off. So whenever you go to start it, these have a timer delay that will only turn the pump on for a second or so to prime the engine to get it to start. Well, if your system is dry, that's not enough. So you end up cycling the key a couple times to get the fuel pushed up there. Well, that's all because this check valve regulator unit isn't working and it's letting it drain back. I was thinking about replacing this because of that, but I just hooked it up on a push button that I could hit a button and activate the relay and make this run longer and then hit the starter. Not their best way to do it, but if you understand how your system works, you can make it work that way. But now that I'm putting this all back together with the right stuff, we shouldn't have to do that anymore. And we'll look down in the tank, and we want to see if there's any contaminants, any bad things floating around in there. And honestly, for a vehicle that's been around as long as this one, that's really nice in there. I do not see anything that shouldn't be in there. A wee tiny bit of sediment, which you're going to have no matter what. But things look pretty good. At this point, if your tank is not clean, you want to drain the fuel out of it and clean it appropriately. Alright, at this point, before we get rambunctious, we want to make sure the new pump looks like the old pump. At a glance, these look very similar. This guy's a little bit taller, but I think that's because he needs put together. Appears like this spring came dislodged from there. So I'll set it back in like it's supposed to be. There. And that clips together. And that'll keep pressure on that to keep it to the bottom of the tank. See, there's a filter on this one, which I did not have on the old one, which is interesting to me that I did not see one in the tank. Makes me wonder if that one has been out of there for something at some point. Got rubber bands wrapped around this thing. You want to be careful, you don't want to bend this thing all up either. Guys, they're still recording. Alright. Yeah, that is your fuel filter strainer unit. It's also a good time to make sure that your plugs are the same. Which I crawled underneath and looked the other day when I got this. It appears to be the same. There's this gasket. The new one came with a new gasket. These look very similar. All of that looks clean. I'll set this back down in there. It's got kind of a lip it clips over. Okay. Now you got to remember to put this back in, sort of in the same orientation. Unit. There's an arrow. This needs turned. Point where it's supposed to be, but there's an arrow here. It lines up with this indentation mark pointing straight ahead. That's how they want that set up in there. Now that's bottomed down the bottom of the tank. If you remember, there's a spring here, and this unit collapses kind of down in there when you push on it. Keeping our arrow where it's supposed to be. Making sure the gasket doesn't go where we don't want it to be. We gotta try to get this on without cross-threading it. Screw it backwards so it kind of feels like it goes kind of like we want it to. That's our protector to keep junk from getting in there prematurely. There, that kind of felt better. And this is a little bit of a challenge. something that would have been a good idea, and I forgot, would have been to mark this ring where it was when it was tight, so you knew how far to go tightening it. But that's starting to feel fairly snug, so I'm going to guess we're pretty close. Say right there is probably it. Okay. Feeling around, seeing that it feels like it's down the same tightness the whole way around, which it does. Nothing appears to be cross-threaded or screwed up that way. And now it's back to reassembly. Wasn't that bad. These just push on. They should push on. Oop, we need the clip. This clip. Oh, get a pick. This little guy, you gotta pick him off, and you just go up under here, lift up on it so it goes over that lip and comes off one side, and the same on the other side, and it slides right off. And then reinstall it on this side. Now, once we get everybody lined back up again, slide that back together till it clips. Make sure we got our orientation the way we want it. Route our electric wires back over here. They connect again, and everything's reverse of disassembly. We'll set this back on the jack. I'll push it back up into place. You have to wiggle it around the exhaust a little bit. You get about halfway up, then you reconnect these guys. Or if you feel you can reach, put it the whole way up in and hook these on after. But that's all there is to it. Fuel pump's fairly simple, straightforward job. I hope this helped you guys. If you have any questions, saw me do something dumb, whatever, write her in the little comment section down below. Alright, well, we're all back together. When I went to start it, it didn't want to start because the fuel pump wires where the connector plugs together didn't want to connect fully for some reason. I took it apart, probed everything. We had power, we had ground. Checked the pump itself, hooked wires up to it, jumped it, worked. Took the connector apart a couple times, wiggled it around, really give it a good plug together, fired right up. Everything's working, just went for a ride. We're back in track. So we'll see you guys in the next one. If you guys run into that, just make sure you check them wires real good. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.